Hello, everybody. Whoa, oh, oh.
Welcome back to the Other Side Lifestyle Podcast with Jim and Aram. If you listened to last week's episode, I was dealing with strep, and it turns out I had it, or I think I have it. I'm still waiting for those tests, but I felt like shit the last handful of days. But it's been a week since you've heard about that.
You look thinner, which is a positive.
I've lost about 10 pounds.
Yeah, you look great. I mean, this is the best you've looked in probably a year. So whatever's happening, keep it up.
I struggle believing you at all because you always compliment me. Because over the past year, as I've been saying, I feel I look like shit. You're like, I think you look great.
Well, that was more like the body positivity stuff, but now I'm actually being honest with you.
But I think I do look better with a leaner face.
Yeah, you don't look like you're fucking like a 3-month-old
Trend up.
alcohol. Yeah, well, I actually looked great when I was on trend, but I don't know. Other people probably don't.
Yeah.
Speaking of trend, Jordan Shallow's here
Speaking
today.
of
What a segue of all segues.
Explain to us why you never get sick.
Oh, well, the battery acid I used to put into myself as a competitive powerlifter, I think sorted that out. I have no footnote citation for that other than my ass, but yeah.
Yeah, so when you say battery acid, you mean bathtub trend.
Just anything you can get your hands on, man. I was in competitive powerlifting at a very interesting time.
How old were you when you got into it?
25.
All right. What got you into that? Were you just like in the gym doing some of this stuff and someone want to do a meet? Like what gets to the point where you're going to trade for a powerlifting meet?
Yeah, I always squat, bench, and dead. I grew up playing hockey in Canada, and it's kind of like just did strengthening off-season stuff and got into like lifting weights a little bit more seriously, and did that all the way through grad school, and met just kind of by happenstance actually at the time one of the best powerlifters in the world. He had a few world records, Dan Green. And so I started working with Dan on like the clinical side as a chiropractor, helping him manage a few injuries. And then kind of an exchange of service, he just kind of started training with him. And I had no idea what the reference ranges for strong were at the competitive level. The only thing I knew was my training partner squatted, in the 800s, 400 kilos, 881. And then my other training partner squatted in the 900s. So he's like, I was squatting.
Regular numbers.
Yeah, right. Yeah, two of the strongest guys on the planet. And so like he signed me up for this meet in Santa Cruz, California, June 18th, 2015, if I'm not mistaken. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna get waxed. And he's like, what are you talking about? It's like, this is a backyard meet in Santa Cruz. You're gonna win this thing running away. I was like, huh? And like I think I squatted 617, bench 421, and deadlifted 666. And like sure enough, they were right. But I was just so used to like the only people I knew that did this were like my training partners who all had world records. And then from there
tells us everything we need to know about perspective in all areas of life. You can feel like the worst in one room and then you're the best in another. Yeah.
So that was kind of, I used that as a bit of a springboard. It was definitely not like a long-term thing that I was going to commit to, but I was like, all right, started an e-com education business around the same time. And I was like, I like doing it. I'm half decent at it at an amateur level. I mean, not that I think there's such thing as professional powerlifting. And I just kind of went with it for, 3, 4, 5 years. And then COVID hit and that was kind of a wrap.
Did you start Prescript right around that same time?
Yeah. Would have been later on that year. We had already started the podcast at that point, with the intention of building an audience to start to market our products to, and then powerlifting just kind of fell into place and was a really good kind of like a catalyzing agent. Be like, all right, we're going to talk about a bunch of bullshit. You better be able to back it up.
Could we just point out how many things were just mentioned in that story about powerlifting? Grad school, chiropractor, e-commerce business, podcast, just casually thrown in.
So
like we're going to,
For anybody that doesn't know this maniac that we're talking to today,
give us a first and last name. Give us the Instagram handle so they can stop listening and just go follow.
Okay, Jordan Shallow, _muscle_doc.
So I've known who this guy was for a while, and I finally got to meet him in person, and it was like meeting my older brother with a bigger brain and more life experience. If we were twins that were born in the same bathtub. That's what it felt like when I first met him. We hit it off. We talked bullshit for 2 days at Lucas.
He looks
event.
taller.
Mildly, like a little bit.
Well,
Only by
we're gonna say he looks significantly taller,
my license says 5'9".
and I'm
I would
thinking
put
twins from Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
correct. Yeah, I'm the smaller one, the more
Yeah,
retarded
you
looking
do
one.
look a
Yeah,
little bit more like Danny DeVito.
yeah, and that's fine. I'll take that. But
Yeah.
Jordan started telling me his story, and I was just like, wow. If coaches understood how long it takes to actually build success the way that this guy did, most of the coaches in the industry would be gone at this point. Because if somebody told them it would take them 10 years to get to where they're supposed to be, they would just quit. And I think that his trajectory was probably one of the craziest things I'd ever heard. So I'd like for you to start talking about sleeping in your car in San Francisco.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, I graduated chiropractic college in 2015. Started started a podcast with my business partner. Started a business with my business partner. Was opening a practice in Mountain View. Had a practice in Dublin. Was a strength coach at Stanford and was a chiropractor at Apple. Uh, and none of that is conducive to having any sort of semblance of mental health. Um, was married at the time. That quickly dissolved, and then I was living in my Toyota 4Runner. I started competitive powerlifting, and we were starting the digital business, and I was kind of like doing the Instagram content type education stuff as I was getting whatever notoriety you get in powerlifting. I was getting invited to meets. Got invited to the Arnold's in Australia a handful of years, some meets around the States and Canada. And, not a lot of money, but people are like, hey, we can't pay you. Would love you to compete, but we can give you some like a gym space while you're here if you wanted to do a seminar. I was like, oh, okay. Interesting. I had never really thought of that before, but I was doing like digital education on Instagram talking about, technique and exercise selection. And this was back when Instagram only had I think there were 15 seconds. So I'd be up there like an auctioneer, like, and everyone's like, what the fuck did this guy just like, guess I take a breath? And so I started.
Sometimes you have to like fast forward a video because you didn't want to cut anything out. You have to put it in like 1.2, 1.25 speed. And be like, I don't know, that's literally like that. But you were probably actually talking that fast.
I was just, ripped on Adderall and pre-workout, just trying to make a buck. And so I did that. And it got to a point where I was, in practice working with the college, powerlifting. And then on weekends, a couple times a month, I'd fly out somewhere in the States. And really my price was like, fuck, if I don't have to sleep in my car, a hotel room, and you don't have to pay me, like whatever that covers. So I started doing that. And towards the end of 2017, I had enough stuff strung together where I had 3 months on the road, where it was like, okay, fuck this. Like I'm selling my car, selling what shit I can, throwing out what I can't, and I'm just going to go. And like worst case, I'm just going to end up back in Windsor, Ontario, moving in with Mike and Louise Shallow. So I took off. I did an event in New York. In Strong, New York, which is kind of still a thing. That was my first real foray. So huge shout out to Kenny Santucci for that, for kind of like taking a risk on me. And then I went overseas. I had a gig in Beirut of all places. So I flew from New York to Beirut and did some stuff over there, and then ended up in Australia for a month and a half, just seminar. And after the first weekend, post a picture at Strong, and someone messages me like, hey, do you want to come do this thing? I was like, well, yeah, I'm not available until March, Feb. And actually it was February. It was John Meadows. May rest in peace. John Meadows messaged me. He's like, would you want to come out to Ohio and do some YouTube content with me? I saw your stuff on, I've been seeing your stuff on Instagram. Like, I think it's really cool. Like, we'll fly you out, come stay at the house. And I was like, okay, but I can't come until I finish this 3 months that I already got planned. He's like, no problem. Just next weekend, you can make time. We'll make it happen. And then the next week goes by and I'm in Lebanon, and then I get 2 more emails or a DM or whatever. And then I was like, okay, look, I can't do this for another like 3.5 months. And that trend continued for about 4 years, about 4.5 years. So I just ended up living on the road from 2017 into like halfway through, the October 2020. I ended up back in Toronto as kind of in the peak of COVID. But prior than that, from 2017 to 2020, I was on the road, just lived out of a suitcase, going from Airbnb to Airbnb, from country to country, and just doing seminars, and developed the digital business in the weeks. And then we did some I got some contracts for doing education for some commercial gyms internationally and one chain in Canada. So I would fly from like Halifax, Nova Scotia to Hong Kong. And then I would have to fly from Hong Kong to like Burnaby, British Columbia. And then I had to fly from Burnaby. Like there was no rhyme or reason. It was just like, can you be here? And I just said yes. And I was like, I don't even know where the fuck that is. Like, okay, all right, let's rock. So I got to travel the world and slowly, documented the whole thing and helped build kind of hopefully the reputation of the business along the way, and started the digital arm adjacent to the in-person education. And one thing sort of led to the next. But that's like the very Coles Notes version of it.
Why did you choose the Pfizer vaccine over Johnson & Johnson?
More tism, I think, was what I was aiming for. Okay.
Just being a doctor, I figured you probably knew maybe some real info that us regular people didn't know, and so why you picked the Pfizer.
Well, you know what it was? I really liked the Pfizer. I like the Pfizer growth hormone. So I think I was like, oh, brand recognition. That's what I was going for.
Yeah, they're on all the news channels.
Right.
So that would be my thought too.
So for folks who aren't familiar with Prescript that are coaches that are listening, so what would you say your aim is with Prescript as far as education is concerned?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to help coaches make better decisions faster so they can solve more valuable problems and make more money, right? Like it's literally how it's heuristics of applied biomechanics and functional anatomy that allow you to walk into any room and go, this is what we can do with movement and exercise and rehab and training, and this is what we can't. And I think the second part is actually more important. I think being able to, as someone who, I deal a lot in the post-operative rehabilitation space, like I've been around injuries at the professional sports level for about a decade now. And I think where coaches struggle is knowing, and I don't want to say like their scope, it's just knowing where their time is most beneficial, right? Like, look, these are the changes we can make. And here's the stuff that you don't want to touch this. Like if you refer this out, that'll come back. So it's really about drawing really definitive borders around the scope, not to limit them, but to allow them to move faster. And I think having a more clinical orientation towards my career, I can kind of say like, look, I've tried to do it this way. It's not going to work. This is your limit where you go, okay, I'm going to dish this person off. But within these limits, you should be able to move very quickly and make very, or create very, positive results in relatively short order. So that's really what it's evolved into, is like, I want all the coaches that work with us and to their businesses to be successful. And I found that the thing, you can talk about funnels and landing pages and sales copy and creatives and ads and all of this stuff. But at the end of the day, like if you don't have a good product, like you're always in this acquisition cycle and not a retention cycle. So we really focus on, directly the product that people bring to market for their clients, the value they provide. And that value is, solving problems really quickly. Using movement, exercise, rehabilitation, training, whatever you want to call it.
Sounds very similar with what Sean Pastuch does.
Love Sean. Love Sean. Was just with him last weekend. What a legend.
Yeah. Just in terms of like philosophy and everything, like knowing who to say no to versus the average person who's just, you got a credit card, you're a potential client. So I think that's awesome that you got. Yeah, that's great that you know him too. You're just with him.
Yeah, no, Sean's a man.
I want
Does
to
he
go down.
send you inappropriate memes, or am I at least special in that realm?
No, I think that's on you. You guys have that bond together.
It's the only thing I have.
Yeah. Hey, don't forget about that gross strep throat thing you're dealing with. You have that too.
I'm gonna pop out some tonsil stones later tonight.
I want to go down two separate roads. I want to go down the end user consumer road, and then I want to go down the coaches road. So when it comes to like end users and training, like your Gen Pop person, where do you see folks going wrong more often than not?
They don't take enough agency over the decisions that they make. Right. Yeah. I think like it is, I really despise the proliferation of the term misinformation. I really despise the talking heads who pedestal themselves by talking about how bad the industry is. Like they're clearly on the other side of it. Like they're the arbiter of good information. So I really feel for the end user in sifting through the content that's out there. But consider yourself lucky that there is that much content. Like you have so much more ability to be nuanced in your approach as a consumer, and you get what you put into it. So if you're getting workouts just from a random scroll on the explore page, It's like, the weird forums that I used to have to sift through to get like bench advice. Like, dude, I'm going to get kidnapped in a van trying to meet up with this guy to teach me how to spoto press. Like, what? This is a risk that I have to take to like get information. You guys just, so I think there has to be a responsibility taken at the level of the end user to sift and vet, right? Like, people spend more time, vetting carpet cleaners for their house than they do how it's like, okay, like that's fucking on you, right? And at the end of the day, like everyone's life is their problem. So it's like, I think the end user just needs to, if you respect and you desire the outcome that's going to come from, nutrition and training and really taking agency over your health, then taking agency over, your consumption of media is probably step number one. And, I just think that, and it's a trope that content creators use to try and draw attention to themselves by saying that they're not this other fitness industry. I've seen it like 10 times this week. The fitness industry is a cesspool. I'm like, yeah, well, fucking, and you're floating in it, dog. Like, what are you doing? So I really think that the end consumer has a responsibility in personally vetting the content that they create. And I think that stems their entire worldview of training comes from that that media consumption diet that they curate for themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people lack that self-awareness of what they're looking for. You were willing to meet that guy in a van down by the river because you knew what you were looking for and he had the knowledge for you. So I think a lot of people, the end user, they don't even know. I think it's great. Like 100% agree with what you're saying. And it's right on, but it's like that end user, just want to add to that, like figure out what you actually want. We've talked about that so many times on here. Like people just don't really know what they actually want. They know they want to look a certain way. They don't realize the lifestyle that goes along with looking that way. So they still want the one thing, but they want the other thing. And it's like, what do you really want? So I agree, completely support everything you're saying, the end user, but that sometimes starts with what the hell do you actually want? And are you aware of the situation you're in? Instead of being in denial. You're not a 21-year-old anymore. You're 46.
The other part of that I think bothers me the same way I think it bothers Jordan is when we have a lot of these talking heads who are calling the industry bullshit or whatever else they want to say about it. They're creating content because they're placating to the masses and what they're looking for. So every time they have a quick dopamine hit of some other bullshit random workout that isn't going to do anything for them, or they're uninformed, or they don't know because they don't have the biomechanics knowledge and they don't have the technical skill sets that we have, we can't blame the end user for that, but we're also responsible for creating the content that makes them engaged. So it's this very weird cycle that keeps occurring where
you have to choose to play that game or not. Like you're not playing the game, Aram, that the average person's playing, where they're putting the cute little outfits on and playing the different roles and doing all the stuff and all the edits and all those things. Now, I think that a lot of that stuff is a little bit old school now. People aren't looking for the highly cut, edited Christian Guzman film that was, once more needed to get info out. But it's like, you got to still decide as the content creator, what are you going to do? Like what you said before about, you're talking about the reaction videos to stuff. You're just giving more attention to these fucking people. I don't get it. Like, I understand that you're trying to say, don't listen to these people, listen to me. Well, if you have such a large audience of people listening to you, just educate.
Yeah.
Don't point out what not to do. Because now that might catch somebody's eye and be like, oh, wait, what does that person have to say? Like, why are you giving any platform to these people with reaction videos or hate speech on top of somebody else? Is it just you just don't believe in what you're educating people on? You don't want to do the education? You want to sound smarter and better, which is what Jordan was kind of saying?
Wow. What side of the road do you fall on with those Stitch reaction videos?
I mean, to me, it's just lazy. Like, I think I echo the sentiment here of just like, can you, like, to me, the antidote to a bad idea is a better idea. Because I've seen this a lot, because how could you not? You open up your phone, it's always there. But what gets me is when, conversations like this are had, or people maybe even directly approach a creator who goes about making content this way. It's the willful blindness, the willful blindness of confirmation bias that kills me. Because like I've seen a number of people who create content this way address this issue and go, well, you know what, I would do it this way, but the number of people that have come through my, nutrition or coaching program, and they're so grateful that I was able to point out all of like the foibles of the people that it's like, well, yeah, but are you that stupid? Like, no wonder the people that you are coaching are attracted by that, because you don't do anything else. You don't have something to test against this, because like, I don't want people who flock to the bright light of complaining and controversy, because those are going to be the exact people that are a complete pain in my dick. So it's like, I don't want these fucking people who are like down with this whiner that's just like, it's just the whole video is him just like shaking his head to some video he's watched 17 fucking times, because that person is going to like, it's going to be the first person to be like, I want a refund, or, hey, can I break the payment plans, and to like miss me with all of that bullshit, right? Because that's what you're attracting. So it kills me on both ends, because like, there are a lot of people who are very smart. It's like, okay, clearly you're just not creative enough, right? Because all you do is like, okay, you see this video about, I don't know, what's oatmeal being poison or something, and you take the guy's video and you remove his, and you just put your face, and you can be like, here are the 7 benefits of oatmeal. You're right, like whatever fiber or something, and and hey, oatmeal is this, and we know that it's not poison. And you know what? Yeah. Like, I just don't think people understand like what value means. Like, I honestly think fitness is going to entertain itself to death, right? The value is bringing someone from their current state to a desired state. And like, I don't want to bring if someone's current state is spiteful and then their desired state is vindicated, that does nothing for my business, right? So it's like, I want someone whose current state is curious, and their current state is curious, and their desired state is knowledgeable, right? Like, that's, and so I'm not gonna fucking sit there and it's the facial, like, and it's just, they always have the most punchable face, right? It's the guy who's doing the reaction is just like, dude, you'd be fucking eating your goddamn smoothies. Everything would be through a straw. Like, everything would be like, it's just so frustrating. And then when they double down in their confirmation bias, it's like, oh, maybe you just are low intelligence. Maybe there's just no helping you. But again, like, I wouldn't want to live that life of like being tied to, like, you're parasitic in the way that you make content. There's a host that you're attaching to, and you're feeding off of that, and now you harbor and infest with more with your own parasitic following. And it's like, you know what, man, I think like peace, how do you live your life like that? To me, like, peace is just the peak experience. Like, just having, like, not having to worry about like a negative comment, because I don't go and shit post people on the internet. Oh my God. I get viscerally ill thinking about what that person's life must be like.
I mean, we've talked to people that do stitch content, and they've made it very clear how stressful their days are and how much bullshit they have to deal with. And it's like, well, you brought it upon yourself to some degree, but you've also now made it your entire identity and your entire platform. So it's the thing that brought you notoriety, and it's the thing that brought you a clientele base, and now you have to keep placating to it until you end up either getting sick of it to the point that you have to sing a different tune, and then you have to risk losing that following and then losing that potential business model. But I don't know. For me, like you said, the peace part, like I put out like a 20 question quiz yesterday that I just decided to do because I was bored, and I'm like, okay, well, let me see where people's problems are when it comes to their lack of knowledge or their knowledge or their routines with nutrition. And like 25 people answered it, and almost 23 out of 25, I think, like, had it figured out. Like, they have a meal prep routine. They eat 4 meals a day. They eat the same shit. Their weekends don't look much different than their weekdays. They know how to eat out at restaurants. They don't stress eat. Like, most people, and maybe it's just because my consumer base is educated or I've done a decent enough job of showing them the light, but most people aren't fucking void of this information anymore. And I think that's the biggest issue that I see in the industry is, like, people don't need more information. I feel like they need some maybe inspiration and some reminders here and there. And outside of the B2C model, which I'm not involved in because I don't coach coaches, like, what more do people need? Like, as long as you're not eating fucking 3 meals a day at a fast food restaurant, sitting on your ass and then going to sleep at 2 in the morning, you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're long removed from the days where 3 out of 4 doctors prescribe or recommend Camel cigarettes. Like it's just like there's a dawn of a new era upon us,
Only
right? Like
only 60 years away from that. Like that wasn't even, that's what's
crazy.
crazy. Is that was what, like
Yeah,
the 50s, 60s, maybe
easy.
even the 70s. I
Oh,
mean, teachers were smoking in classrooms, smoking in airplanes in the 70s, 80s, I think.
it's
80s it was
amazing.
like the smoking section, 90s was a smoking section in restaurants. And you're
Yeah,
literally just sitting right next to the non-smoking section. The same way organic food is right next to the sprayed food that just is
I love it.
sprayed right over it. It's
And
crazy how it was not that long ago.
and
Right.
none of it makes that big of a fucking difference anyway, because the thing that most people are missing is just ferocious consistency. And once that gets figured out, then you're really never doubting your own decisions. I think the problem that exists today, and what I saw from collecting this data, was most people are just looking to be validated that they're on the right path. And all they're really going to pay me for is accountability and some adjustments based on whatever goals they evolve into. And that's really it. That's why I don't have to charge a fucking stupid amount of money like some of these asshole coaches are charging. And I can get away with having a pretty easy day because my clients are well informed and they're doing relatively well compared to most people out there.
Aram, Aram,
Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt because you're there. Go, your video came back. All right.
So
Last time we had somebody whose video went out and their audio is still on. We had no audio, so I just wanted to make sure. But you were just texting.
I had
someone,
some
so.
pop-up windows come up,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
let me switch directions and go to the coach's side, because obviously we can discuss what the consumer problems are, and I think they're relatively simple. But you coach enough coaches and teach enough coaches. Where do you see, where are the grand problems that you see when it comes to actually coaches disseminating information, or where they're lacking?
Oh man, I think there's a few pretty deep rabbit holes that I've been exploring lately, and I think one of the major ones that I've kind of been batting around is like people don't have a worldview. The coaches just get into it like they're like strippers. They're like, oh, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to coach my way through college. Like I'm going to strip my way through college and just pay the bills. And it's just like they get at the other end of it.
They get a cool handle. Like
Oh yeah, yeah, right. You know, and you know, next thing you know, you're 48 and you're doing C-section Tuesdays over at Teasers on Drewlard Road. And it's just like, how did we get here?
Very specific. Very specific.
Shout out Drewlard Road, Teasers, Windsor, fine establishment. But no, like
he has not been there in days. Just so you guys know.
it's yes. I mean the lobster bisque. Let me tell you, it's unbelievable. Organic. Yeah, that's something sprayed in there.
It's full of UTIs.
So like I think like at its core, man, like one of the biggest issues that I see is that it's like people don't have a worldview. They don't understand how they make decisions. They're sort of just like they're at the controls of their life, but they're not in control. And it like, I'm not a shrink, but I've talked to enough of them. And when I start to engage with coaches who have this like air of not desperation, but concern and urgency, it's very hard to like peel them away from the thing that they're holding on to so tightly and be like, hey, what do you do when you're not doing this? Right. Because like I find coaching is really about intersectionality. Like, okay, you're a coach, but what else? You're a coach and you're jacked. Okay, get in line because you're not going to be the smartest and you're not going to be the most jacked. What else do you like to do? Right? Like things really started to, I think, make a jump for me is when I stopped trying to sell and I just started to share. Like I travel like crazy. Like I love nothing makes me happier than just going to an airport with a duffel bag and seeing where I end up. Like it's my favorite thing in the world. But you know, I don't follow like this logarithmic approach to content creation where this post is going to be a reel, this post is going to be a tweet, this post is going to be an infographic, this post is going to be a recipe, and then I just repeat that. Oh, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday Wellness Day, and here's my Wednesday wellness post. It's like, hey, this is my workout today, and then tomorrow I'm in Tunisia, and it's like I've had more people get drawn to me in the business from what I intersect with outside of fitness, because the intersection of jacked and tanned and smart and accredited or credentialed, who gives a fuck? Not the end user. And let me tell you something about end users with a shit ton of money. They don't give a fuck. I had a very, I'm not going to name his name, but a very prominent wide receiver in the NFL after working with him for many years. Go, do you know why I hired you? I'm like, not a fucking clue. I thought it was because I worked with one of his friends. He goes, no, you showed up in a really cool car with off-whites and nice watch, and you were covered in tattoos. And I was like, that's how you made your decision? Dude, I worked with you for like 2.5 years. Like, I don't fucking know, man. Like, I don't know if any of this shit actually matters. Like, I was good before I started working with coaches, you know, like that's it. That was it. So there was an intersectionality there that I think is really important. And it's like, what do you like? Right. I think it's almost like the same point that Aram made, or that Jim, that you made earlier. Like, what the fuck do you want? Right. I think that's a plague that plagues the coach just as much as the end user. So it's like figuring out like, hey, there is an operating system that runs the way I make my decisions. And what is that operating system? And if I can identify it in myself, I can identify it in potential clients, and I can understand how to communicate better with them. So it's like, you know, I think so much of the plight of like the coach now is it's the overexposure to too many winning lottery tickets, and they're not creative enough to come up with their own. It's like, look, you may want to do what, you know, like I was in Houston the other day at G's event, and I was at that Alpha Land gym. And let me tell you something, holy fuck. But that number's been called already. You can't do that again. Right. Like, that's not like you can study. And I don't know Christian, but it's like, you know, I'm sure he's too busy building whatever empire he's building to like coach coaches on his winning lottery number. So it's like, I really think there's an inability to read between the lines. And I get it. Like, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of content. There's a lot of competition, but there's never a lot of competition for good coaches. Right. There's always blue water. There's always, you know, it's very lonely, like quote unquote at the top, but understand what your definition of good is. And it's not like, you know, most people like machines instead of free weights, or most people like cables, and most people, but I think it's way deeper than that, but it's very simple. It's like trying to get a coach who's like looking out the window to realize that there's a reflection of themselves. It's like a very hard frame shift to be like, see right there. And you're like, oh yeah, that's a tree outside. Like, no. Like, you're looking too hard at the thing. The glass reflects back. Like, it's so nuanced in trying to get people to focus on the thing they need to focus on, because it's literally right in front of them. But they keep looking out the window rather than using that and reflect back. That's like an analogy that I've been toying with, because it's like I've tried to, you know, with the coaches that we work with, you know, as we impart some of the technical stuff, it's like, you're shit useless if you don't have this awareness piece that's going to lead to you being able to communicate what you know effectively.
Do you have experience with psychedelics? This is
oh man, question. I got yeah. What do you want?
Okay.
What do you want
as
to do?
You're saying, as you're saying that, I'm like, you've done something, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to psychedelics, because
that obvious.
Yeah, well, to me, because I've tried them a few times. I don't want to talk about it, but
he's a school teacher, Jordan.
Yeah, all the time.
Oh, got it.
So, but I mean, that self-awareness, that reflection, that pointing out how everything is a mirror to us, and finding your path, like, that's all the stuff that I feel like you learn almost exclusively through either a long amount of years of life experience, you're not at that age, or from some psychedelic experiences where I think you're 100% spot on. And too many clients are comparing themselves to other people. Too many coaches are comparing themselves to other people. They want to build this thing, ignoring what that person's path was. You strike me as the kind of person where if you did not have any of the businesses that you have right now, you'd still be just as happy with what you were doing. But who you are is what created the businesses that you have right now, because that's what makes you happy. And it's just interesting. I think people, they don't have the self-awareness. They don't realize that everything's a reflection in the mirror, and they're chasing what you have, and they're never going to be happy. And that's why so many coaches become business coaches.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's I mean, that's only if they're too ugly for OnlyFans.
Which is very, well, the nice thing about,
there's been a few that there's one we know. I go, there's this coach that we knew from years ago who had an OnlyFans. I'm like, how does this person have an OnlyFans? It was frightening. And that was like their main link on their coaching page. I'm like, what world are we in? And women are hiring this woman. It's just so weird. I think that's a thing of the past. But anyway, back to what we were talking about.
Well, there's a fundamental lack of individuality, and I think what makes, you want to call them good, you want to call them effective or practical or helpful, whatever terminology we want to use, people resonate with authenticity and individuality. And when they see a person they like, they don't give a fuck what result they're going to get. They don't give a fuck what they're selling. They're just going to buy it because they want to be in the stratosphere of that individual. And I've been able to make a career out of just being myself and not giving a shit what anybody fucking says to me or what they think or how they perceive me. And there's been times where it's backfired, and there's been times where I didn't have learning experiences because of it, and I've probably taken myself out of the race. But there's also been times where the only reason why I have a business is because of that level of authenticity. And I think where Jordan separates himself from the pack is there's plenty of educational courses out there for coaches. And none of them are all that bad outside of maybe like NASM and some other ones. But let's be honest, like he's teaching people the same shit that's been taught for, I don't know, 50, 70 years, however long it's been around for. I don't know how long big biomechanics has been studied or educated or whatever.
632 years.
Great. Thank you.
I just Googled it.
Thank you. So it's not like it's not the product that people are attracted to. It's the people that are the product is surrounded by. And I think why people go to Prescript versus NASM or versus N1 or versus any of these other people out there is because they want to be around Jordan. They want to be around his energy.
Well, let's help people want to be around themselves. I'm being serious when I say this. And so this is helping the client. This is helping the coach, which is what you want to talk about today. What in your experiences have caused you to have the perspective that you have now?
Travel.
Yeah.
I've been to 82 countries. Shift. Well, I mean,
we get it, Jordan.
Spending time with, well, no, like if someone says like, hey, I have $1,800, what should I do? I said, you should probably book a one-way flight to Thailand and figure it out. Like that'll take you way further than, any course. Right. So, I mean, for me, it was that coming from a place where I was $250,000 in debt and overdrawn on a bank account and, nowhere to go, but just live on the road and try and figure it out. It's like that to me was a luxury because it's like that level of urgency was forced on me over, a decade of bad decisions. Most people kind of live in this like region beta paradox where their situation would be better off if it was worse. Right. So it's like, I think travel for me is a good microcosm of putting yourself in a bad situation and making you have to figure it out. Now, I'm not saying like go to the DR and, drink Mai Tais all day, like go out and get some perspective. Yeah. So
hanging out on different beaches is very different than traveling. And people need to know the difference between that too.
Going to Bali doesn't make you, enlightened. It makes you a cunt, right? Like it's just not really gonna.
I go to Bali, Cancun, the Virgin Islands. That's the same thing.
So for me, like that was, and again, maybe it's not in people's forte, but for me, that was like the catalyzing agent because like you want to pack a lot of life experience into 34 years. Go to 82 countries, be on a flight every 4 days, travel 240,000 kilometers in the air every year for 7 or 8 years, you'll start to figure some shit out.
Well, and not to mention that, like you're exposed to different cultures, you're exposed to different ideologies, you're exposed to different conversations that you'll never be able to have and be able to stick into that small time period. That's life experience. That's the best way to find purpose, fulfillment, happiness, whatever. And so many people are just running this ridiculously useless rat race to no end because they don't even know where they're going or why they're going there. And that's such a incredible commentary on the coaching world is every time I have a conversation with coaches, I'm having to convince them that they should still keep doing it because half of them are frustrated that they're not doing as well as other people are. I'm like, cool, you're just on that part of the road. You're not further along yet. However long it's going to take you to get further is however long it's going to take you to get further.
So it's like losing weight?
Exactly.
Or putting on muscle? It's such a weird
We can use the same fucking analogy for any level of achievement in this life. And it's just, it bores me to tears having to have that conversation constantly. Why am I telling you about your values and your strengths? Why aren't you telling me about them?
That's what you're there for, Aram.
And I've just never understood. And maybe it's because I've had it harder than other people have. And maybe it's been this wild ride that I've embraced. But I don't understand what the problem is when it comes to doing similar shit consistent. Like Jordan's one of those.
I think I know.
Like Jordan's one of those people. Like I remember sitting there at one of the dinners at Vigor, and Jordan's got a Tupperware out, Nobody else does. I think he was one of the only ones. And I didn't bat an eyelash. It's like, okay, he's got goals, he's got standards, he wants to feel a certain way. And I commend him for it. Like, this is a guy who's on a plane fucking 25 days out of the month. He doesn't know what time zone he's going to be in, but he still keeps certain things going because they impact the way that he's going to feel. And I just don't think enough people have that level of conviction. So, Jordan, when you're talking to a room full of professionals like us, trying to get them further down the road, are you teaching them about the mistakes you've made, or are you telling them about experiences that you've had to try to get them to relate to what it is that you're trying to tell them?
Yeah, I mean, it depends a lot on the room, I guess. It's just, for me, the only thing I can do, I think, is just tell people what I've done. Like, I don't like being necessarily prescriptive, even telling people to go travel. Like, I wouldn't recommend that people do that. I recommend that people read between the lines and figure out what their version of that is. Yeah. Right. So, like, I try, and the only thing I can say, and this is why I'm not a business coach, is this is what I do, this is what I've done. But I'll preface it with, like, please try and read between the lines and make what I'm saying analogous to your life. Don't try and take this, this lottery ticket and play it yourself. So it's, it's kind of twofold. The prescription is the awareness. It's not the actual, like, X's and O's. I'm not saying, you need to do this, 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 and this. It's, you need to pay attention and figure out what are the equivalent steps, what are the equivalent risks in your life that you're willing to take. Here are mine. And then I'll tell you my story, but I want you to preemptively going into listening to whatever it is that I'm sharing with you with the filter, or with the understanding that you're going to consume this information and see where these situations apply to your life. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever read Joseph Campbell, Hero of a Thousand Faces, Hero's Journey. He basically tells the story of any movie worth watching. And he tells it through 1,000 different, like, here's where Gandalf is actually a Mayan Aztec god in this story. And all Tolkien did was make him not Mexican and give him a bow staff and a hat. Like, it's like, so there's some universalities to these successful story arcs. And all I want to do is, like, okay, I'll tell my story with the preface of, like, this is, don't try this at home. But as you're listening to it, try and make yourself this character, and try and see, like, where are your opportunities to take risks, right? Where are the people in your life that are there to support you that you don't realize, right? Like, one of the things that I think is consistent with people at a certain point in their career is, I embodied that no one cares, work harder mentality for a really long time, until it stopped serving me. And guess what? Until I had a bunch of people around me who really cared. And then those people who actually cared, understanding that, oh, wait, I do have people who care, that actually allowed me to work even harder, right? But that's a very normal progression through a story arc. So I think, in trying to help other coaches, it's pay it, like, here's my story, here's what I did, but look at it through the lens of your own experience and try to see where your analogous opportunities are to make decisions. And if I made the wrong one by your estimation, then you go make the right one. Well, and I think that's
10 years ago, were you picturing anything that you have right now in your life?
No, because I think, and maybe a takeaway is, look, I think there's a real benefit to just having a flashlight at your feet. Right? Yeah, like, that's the mood board is distracting. It's useless.
Yeah. Like, it seemed like from what you were telling your story before, it was this thing led to this led to this. And then you were willing to do this. And then this led to this. And people now, they want what you have or what somebody else has. And it's, how do I get there? Well, you're not going to get there because you're at a place where you're trying to roadmap this, and you can't roadmap how are you going to handle situations as they come up, and what are you going to end up willing to do? And I think that's part of the problem is you were passionate about something. Are these people really passionate about what they're doing? And are they willing to just see how the road unfolds in front of them?
Yeah. I mean, the wisdom that I do try and impart is everything that I did was in the moment, the highest leverage opportunity. What was the highest leverage opportunity that's in front of me right now? Like, I wanted to train pro athletes. I wanted to be involved in sports, but there was a point very early in my career where someone comes up to me and goes, "Hey, your ergonomics professor from grad school recommended you for this job at Apple." And I go, "Apple, fuck, corporate? Like I got to wear fucking pants? Like what the fuck is like, and shoes? Like, it's not me." But you want a high leverage opportunity. It's like, yeah, I'm fucking 2 days out of graduating and I have a chance to work at one of them. And, I'm not in the fucking, the lab making the hardware, but no one gives a fuck, right? Like it's a thing that I have in my resume forever that carries a bit of weight. So that's the highest leverage opportunity. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Right. I had some fucking Tom, Dick, and Harry being like, "Oh, do you want to come intern at my office for $17 an hour?" And I was like, "Well, that's not a compare these two things. It's like this guy, trains amateur athletes, but this is Apple. Like this is a way higher leverage opportunity. I'm going to take this." And then I took that. And then the next thing came up and I had a few options and I took the highest leverage opportunity there. And if you do that for a long enough time, you end up going from doing what you have to do, being able to do what you want to. And it's, I think like the road is punctuated by leverage. And I just think a lot of people, when they have that North Star, that mood board, that that chant of affirmation towards whatever it is that they really want to do, it's like, I am not even close to the same person I was 10 years ago.
Yeah, they miss all the paths that were there that would actually have taken them to where they wanted to be. They're so focused on this path that they miss the actual other paths, because every hero's journey has the other's path. You started on this way, and then there's this path that took you off track, and that's actually the track that gets you to the place that you really ultimately want to be.
But the path is growth, though, as a person, and that's what gets missed. Is like I feel a lot of people, like I don't know, when I was, there was a point in my life where I'm sure I wanted to be a cop. Right, where I watched enough Die Hard 2 where I was like, fuck yeah, man, I want to save Christmas at the airport. Like, it's just like, like I want to crawl around the vents like John McClane and smoke cigarettes. It's like, but I grew the fuck up. And, you grow up from 8 to 18, but you continue to grow up from, 15 to 18 to 28 and from 28 to 30. But I feel like a lot of people, like if I was stuck to that goal of like, no, I want to be John McClane, I wouldn't experience the same amount of growth as a person, right? Like you don't know who you're going to become. And if you have this goal that ties you to this way of being, you're just going to end up being, it's like, oh, cool, I achieved the goal of my 12-year-old self. It's like, I used to fucking eat paint chips when I was 12-year-old. What the fuck did I know? Like, I'm so glad I didn't achieve the goal of that menial IQ, the 5-foot flat, stupid kid. It's like, so I just think
like podium syndrome too. Like when they get on the podium, for CrossFit Games or whatever it might be, and then they feel that sense afterwards of like, now what? Because that was the only thing they were so hyper focused on. Well, they got it. Now what? Versus the journey being the goal and then seeing how things unfold. And a lot of people don't recover from that podium. They were the Ted Bundy. Al Bundy. Ted Bundy's the killer. Al Bundy's the football player. Wrong Bundy. But yeah, like always talking about winning state or whatever it might be for them.
The old Uncle Rico. He could throw a pigskin a quarter mile.
Yeah, throw damn near all the mountains. How important were the people that you met along the way, as far as your transformation and as far as your growth?
Oh yeah, I mean that's invaluable, and opening yourself up to those opportunities, even when it everything serves you with the right attitude, right? Like I've met some cool people who are they move the needle in the industry and they've done some incredible things, but like I think I've had way more impactful conversations and relationships with like people who DM me and go, "Hey, I see that you're in Istanbul. Do you want to train?" I go, "Fuck yeah." Say, why would I not want to train? Like that is what I like to do. I get to meet someone from this place that I'm in. I'm going to get something from this, right? And I think, and I've seen it a lot, and people who are trying to make a name in the industry, and especially ones that go through like the rigorous curricula of a business coach. And it's like, if it's not worth your time, like don't do it. Get it off your books. Like, what do you? And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, where, man, are you joking me? Like the number of opportunities that I've had just meeting up with just any random whatever. Like, you never know when that stuff's going to come back, or you never know like what the value, and sometimes it's not even like transactional in a conventional sense, but that like it's literally every opportunity I have, I can pull back to just a conversation with a single person, right? Like that's the exponential catalyzing agent to the entire story. It's not like, if I go to a city and I'm in the airport and I'm in a conference center and then back to the hotel, then back to the airport, it's like there's no redeeming value. There's no investment into the future. That was a waste of time. But if someone goes, hey, do you want to go out to dinner? It's like, yeah, sure. Like, like at the end of the day, that's really what's going to push you forward. The number of in-person touch points that I've had with like the audience that follows me or whatever, or just people in general, I'm like, that's the engine, right? People, I think they get this, like, what kills me is when people have like, they follow 72 people, like, I have 100,000 followers or whatever, but I follow, and they're all blue check douchebags. And it's just like, if you invest money into what I'm doing, like, and you're like, why would I like not want to be involved in what you're doing and have a conversation with you? If you like repost a story, like, I'm going to engage with you for no other reason, self-servingly, than I need to know about the people who like investing money in me, so I can potentially be able to understand how to address more of them. But it's like, you ungrateful fuck, like that practice of, even of just like, engaging digitally with people is such a catalyst. And unfortunately, it's a catalyst because a lot of people don't do it. Most people are just like, they get on this holier than thou shit, and they just like kind of F people off. And it's like, man, you have no idea. Like, no idea, like, who people know, what people are capable of, or what people will become. Look at me. I was a fucking stupid power lifter 10 years ago, right? And I know people who wrote me off and who fucked me off. And now it's like, they'll come to me for favors, and it's like, fuck you, man. Like, you fucking ghosted me a decade ago. Now I can do something for you. And on the vice versa, I have people who complete long shot in the dark, and they took a shot, like a Kenny Santucci. Like, I was fucking nobody, man. Like, I showed up in black Timberlands and sweatpants that I've been living in for the last 3 weeks. And he's like, yeah, dude, I don't know, just go talk. And now if Kenny calls, like, I'll run through walls for him. So I just, I've veered so far from the original question, but the people thing is like, that's like, and even if your intentions are self-serving and malicious, it's still the fastest way to get what you want. Like, I just don't understand how even the Machiavellian people out there, like the true sociopaths in our industry, don't just play nice in the sandbox. Because it's like, dude, this is going to be what catalyzes you. You want to make a bunch of money? You want to fucking have a freedom of time and space? Don't be a prick. Like, that is very transactional if you want to look at relationships that surface level, or if you want to have some quality of life and a bunch of couches to sleep on around the world, like, be nice too. But like, there's no reason to be a dickhead.
We've had a couple of people out here where we've talked, it's been a while. I mean, we're going on like 3 years of this, where we were talked afterwards of how they couldn't even reshare their fucking guest spot video on Instagram. Like, we posted a clip of their episode, and they didn't promote at all. That they're like, half our audience probably don't even know who you are, dude. We don't care if you have 250,000 followers. Maybe just post that you're on a podcast. Why come on? It was just so strange. There was only a handful, like, a while ago. I don't know if you're thinking of the same person I am, but
I'm thinking of a few, but I mean, the gatekeeping attitude.
No pressure to re-share anything, Jordan. No, that's up to you.
Have you seen my Instagram? It's not exactly the wall at the Louvre. We're not curating an experience here.
Jordan,
if we ask you to collaborate, no pressure. If it messes with your
with your algorithm, are you allowed to talk about the book at all or no?
Yeah. I mean, we're probably about a year out from getting it onto the shelves, but yeah, for sure.
So you alluded to some of the stuff you were talking about with it when I met you in Seattle, but can you talk about what you're writing about, what drove you to want to write about it?
Yeah. So the book is about how we expedite the motor learning process, right? There's a lot of books in the, the bro-entrepreneur health fitness space about improving cognition, memory, and our habits. Like, you know, the old James Clear's Zoom background book. And there's, you know, there's these fundamental neurological first principles that allow us to understand, you know, how memory and cognition work, and how we can, like, quote unquote, like, hack and expedite the process of using our brains. But no one pays attention to that. The same thing is on offer for us when it comes to using our bodies. And I think fundamentally now what we're seeing is, you know, the industry, it gets a little bit stovepiped. You know, there's the wellness longevity crowd. There's the more injury prevention, risk management, rehabilitation crowd. There's the bodybuilding crowd. There's the strength training crowd. Right? We have all of these different factions that in some way, shape, or form use resistance training as a tool within their framework to achieve a particular goal in each one of these categories. And what I've seen in working across all of these categories, you know, for a decently long time, is that the people who achieve the goal of muscle gain, who achieve the goal of body composition or longevity, health markers, bone density, athletic performance, rehabilitation, what causes their success is how skilled they are at exercise. That's the center of it. Is exercise is a skill that you can be good at, and if you learn how to be good at it first, you can go cross discipline and use resistance training to push whatever physical agenda you want to push. But you need to get the skill of exercise down first. So the book is really about understanding that, framing that, look, exercise is a skill. Right. And if you work as a coach in this industry, you know that to be the case, because you probably work with a lot of very unskilled individuals. Right. Like if you're dealing with a body composition client, or you're dealing with someone who wants to put on more muscle, lose more fat, it's like, well, if they exercise like complete dog shit, if they're not skilled, it's like, you know, you're doing check-ins, you're regressing movements, you're trying to give them cues, you're trying to improve the quality of it. So I think there's been an over objectification in quantification of progress, but all these quantifications are correlations to the subjective interpretation of quality of the skill of the movement itself. So it's really about how is it that we learn motor patterns, and how can we expedite that so that regardless of who you're working with, you can teach them the skill of exercise faster.
That'd be a valuable tool, because Lord knows that's what people want. That's what the end user wants. They want to be able to get from A to B in the fastest, most efficient way possible. It doesn't waste their time and their money. And I think one of the pigeonholes that coaches get themselves stuck in is I'm going to give them what I think is best for them, and not really listen to what they know or don't know, or at least even assess what the fuck they know and don't know, or why they care about it at all in the first place. And that's a really interesting place to be, is when you're having those conversations with people that don't really understand. You know, I deal with people that are Gen Pop. I deal with people that their only exposure to fitness has been a group fitness class at YMCA that told them to do deadlifts and fucking into rows, into overhead presses with 5-pound dumbbells. And I can't sit there and be like, well, that sucks, don't do that, because if that's their only exposure, I'm not going to knock that, because it's better than sitting on the couch. But I think, you know, now we're having all this infighting of like, what's the best joint angle and what's the best.
What is the best joint angle, Jordan?
Oh God, please don't.
Obviously, a hip hinge is the most superior movement.
What's the best angle? What's the best degree angle that the joint should be at for?
Probably 78, obviously, and it's only if you only pull with the thoracic attachment of the labs.
Yeah, I always thought it was 78. You're agreeing it's 78 degrees.
I am, yeah. But that's also because I only listen to what's his name, Jeff Nipple. Nippard.
Oh God.
Nipple.
I don't know. I don't know anybody that's famous anymore. I just know the people that I know, and I know.
Once you become famous, Aram, everybody else is just a little person.
Not gonna happen. But I'm excited for that book, because that's a book that I think a lot of coaches are going to need. I also think that's probably going to be a great book for end users as well.
So we have the prescript, which is where people are getting educated. We got the book coming out,
and there's what? There's
and then
three.
You have spoken nutrition.
There's three levels of prescript, right?
Yeah. So level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 3 is actually like level 3 is 6 days in Tampa when we train our combine athletes.
You get a doctor.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah.
So that, well, what's your association affiliation to Spoken? Are you?
It's one of the co-founders.
Okay. And fuck Jordan Boxer because we know we love him.
Yeah, God bless him. We'll talk real slow on this part so he can understand us.
It was
Sorry,
so nice.
Box.
It was so
Sorry,
nice.
sorry, Box.
It was so nice to see him and his family for a few days in Vegas, and I got to meet his kid, which was nice. Striking resemblance to his wife.
Thank God. Thank God.
So
We don't need another him running around.
where's the next trip taking you, and what are you excited about?
Yeah, I just took on a new client here in San Francisco. So I relocated a few weeks ago for a new client. So I'll be based out of here and kind of just I take on these every so often where I pick up my life and relocate to work with one person. So this year's adventure is in San Francisco. So I do a lot of traveling around the States primarily. So my normal ports of call now are usually New York, Florida, California, and Colorado. So I just kind of bounce around there periodically throughout the month. So it's getting into the clinical season of my career, I kind of comes in waves. A couple of years ago, I worked with a tennis player, went on the road through Europe for 6 or 7 months. This year, it's a client who shall not be named, and so just traveling around the States. So next, I think for me is probably New York in a couple of weeks, and I usually split time between New York and California.
I'm just picturing you next to a tennis player and then thinking like, is this your fucking security?
Well, look,
what's this guy here with a tennis player for?
I tell you what,
a clear curly thing that hangs out of your ear just so people assume that you're security and don't ask?
If there was ever a tennis player who needed me to do both, it was definitely the guy I worked with, because he was a badass, man. He was a ton of fun, but he had more. I mean, at the end, I think he had more tattoos than I did. I think I have more than him now.
The John McEnroe of this generation.
Yeah, no, literally, that's so. Nick Kyrgios is very much the him and John Mack would do a lot of media together, because that's a comparison that they make. So yeah, it made for some interesting stories, but probably the only way that I fit in there's a picture of us at Wimbledon. It was on the cover of the Guardian sports page, and it was him walking through with I think he had like a Kobe Bryant graphic t-shirt on, a backwards hat, and a pair of Nike One Lows. And I had a Godfather or Goodfellas t-shirt on, and like you could see the tattoos on the side of my head. And I think I had a pair of like Jordan 3 cements or something. And they're just like Kyrgios back at Wimbledon. And it was just like these two degenerates just like walking through like one of the nicest, most pristine sporting events in the world. Yeah. Yeah. The number of times that just the back of my head made it on NBC.
I'm thinking about like the Andre Agassi days where he was so controversial because he wouldn't wear white. Like it was like he had to wear white. He was so controversial. And then fast forward to that with a picture you just painted is hilarious to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, my client got fined by Wimbledon for wearing red Nike J's. And when I had to go out on match court, I had to wear all white as well. But I didn't have white shoes. I had these Jordan 3s that had a bit of red on them. He's like, perfect. I'm like, what if they find me? He goes, don't worry, Nike will pay for it. And I was like, all right. So.
Was he wearing those in competition, or he wasn't even allowed to wear them? Just
so he wore them walking out on the court against was it Djokovic the year before? And like the royal family is there, like like Brad Pitt, the fucking queen and shit. And he walks out with like One Low Chicago's, and he doesn't play in them obviously, but he walks. Yeah, he plays in like he's got his own. He has actually his own tennis shoes that he plays in. But he walked out on the court in One Lows, and they fined him $25,000.
That was a great question, then, because that's unbelievable. He's getting fined just for walking out, not even playing in them. Like I just wore these out here.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I can't wait till you end up in Augusta for some reason with whatever the fuck you wear. That's gonna be amazing.
You got to coach like a polo player and be out there.
Polo, just go real proper with it. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like those guys are probably psychos, man.
That's perfect for you.
I could absolutely see. I mean, you probably worked with golfers before, right?
Yeah, one or two. Nothing top, like no top 20 guys or anything. But I've worked with a handful. No, I'm not walking around 18 holes. Miss me with that. I won't even go to my fucking baseball players' games anymore. I'm like, no. Like, I'm fucking going to do something else, man. Like
Yeah,
even football is getting tough.
If I can't actively help you in this situation, there's no need for me to be here anymore.
Yeah. No, you're getting a separate bill for that.
For you too. You're like, this was cool experience at the beginning, but now it's like, it's a big investment in time.
Yeah, and I mean, fuck, some of these, like, football is tough. Baseball is even tougher to sit through. Like, I'll watch the highlights. We'll be good. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Let me know how you felt about the game, and then we'll go from there.
Right? Yeah. Fuck, do I give a shit? Yeah.
Well, dude, I know you're a busy man. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us and our audience today. And Jimmy's going to give you our last question, so that way we can analyze and judge you against all of our previous guests and make sure that you fit the bill.
That's right. And if you ever want to have another episode where we just talk about your journeys with psychedelics and how that's changed you, we're down for that as well.
Can we do it high?
Yeah.
Me and Aram have talked about that before, having one where we progressively get to a place, but it would be different because if we did weed, it would not be progressive for me at all.
I won't touch it.
Would never get high. I would instantly be high, and we wouldn't be on the same wavelength. But if we were to sit down and drink some tea together,
no, I'll just keep dropping 0.3 mushrooms. So
and then 45 minutes later we'll start because if me and Jordan drink some tea, it'll start kicking in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'm down for whatever. That sounds good.
Well, ask him.
That could be Aram's first one where he really gets a hero's dose. He'll truly understand the hero's journey. Last question. Have a good one. Bye.